Roger, as we waited for a start, letting people know we're going live again. As usual, we just want to welcome everybody to the porch today. And yeah, it says we're live now.
There we go.
Yep, sounds good. So the sound's good. So let me just get this, share this with some.
Interesting parties.
Yeah, and get going. So I understand one of the new things you got coming up on the first of the year is another session or another show with Peggy Denny.
Right.
You'll be taping that on the 3rd, right?
Right. And we're going to be talking about change and the difficulty with change. You know, people all the time are saying change, 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 but change is hard on you. And it seems like the older people get, the harder the change is, even though people know they need to change and that life is about change. It's a difficult situation to be into. So we're going to address that on the 3rd of January and play it probably a couple of times on Channel 16 during the month of January.
Good. And well, you know, that's a good time to be doing it because New Year's, we are a society that deals with New Year's resolutions and which does require change, but then I know one of the challenges we always have is how long do we keep those New Year's resolutions before?
Till about February.
Yeah, till they're broken.
Until we're back on the same path. You know, we incredibly, Rick, are creatures of habit. And so we unknowingly worship habit and go back to habit. And even though those habits haven't worked for us, they have not been productive for us. They feel comfortable. They feel right. And then we get in the mindset, well, we just haven't given it a good enough chance. We haven't worked on it enough. So what we're going to do is go back and do the definition of crazy, the same thing, expecting different results. And so we have people that are doing things that haven't worked for 20 years, but now they're going to continue to do it, rather than to say, well, I don't think this has worked. I think even though it's going to be hard, even though it's going to be difficult, even though it's going to be like petting a cat the wrong way, we're going to do it anyway. And I think there is kind of the challenge of people. And I'm really admiring of people who are willing to step up to the plate and do things differently. That they've assessed their situation and they say to themselves, this isn't working. This has not been productive for me. And so they're not going to continue to do the right thing. And I think that's a powerful thing with the new year is the moment of assessment, assessing your money, assessing your budget, assessing your marriage, assessing your work, and to see if it's what you thought it would be. You know, I think, but we were talking before the show of, wow, how did we get here? You know, how did we make it to the East Coast? It was, I hear from you, I know it wasn't for me, a goal for me to come to the East Coast. I never thought I'd be on the East Coast, but here we are. You know, we're both living on the East Coast and have family and extended family right here on the East Coast. And we've created a history here where people we know haven't moved. You know, they've been in the same place, doing the same thing in the same way. And some of them, I love it, it has worked because they've assessed. Other people, it's like they're in a time warp. They're doing the same thing. And, you know, you could have met them in the 70s, you could have met them in the 80s, you could have met them in the 90s. They're still doing the same thing, sadly. And so they're kind of emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationally stuck.
And so how does one go about doing these type of assessments as we're coming into 2018? And if we're giving this advice out there, what are some good steps for someone to start these assessments of different parts of their lives, their relationships, their jobs, their families, because the assessment is again with the idea, what are the things that I can do better and where are the changes I have to make in order to do what I'm doing.
Well, Rick, one of the things that's very powerful about this is doing things consciously, is writing down, I'm going to do that, I'm going to look at this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to evaluate that. Have a time, have a date, have a place, just like a formal meeting
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have with others, you have with yourself. You know, you sit down with a piece of paper and a pen in a room by yourself. It could be a room in your house or a room, you know, in an office, and just sit down and say, let me evaluate me. It's conscious, it's purposeful, it's powerful to people. But what I see is people go 20, 30 years and never evaluate. They just, you know, this is they live their life in what I call doing what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
They're next people, and they do that, and they go along with that rather than to say, I've got to do this. You know, I had a friend who wanted to be a country western singer and realized, well, that wasn't going to happen in Oklahoma City. Well, they didn't stay in Oklahoma City. They sit down and wrote and said, okay, we're going to have to get a U-Haul. We're going to have to pack it up. We're going to have to go to Nashville. We're going to have a budget. I mean, they structured it up. And then I have a person that I knew here who was a good drummer and could have been a studio musician in Nashville, but looked at it and said, wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Wasn't worth the investment. So they could have packed everything else. They could have gone, but they chose not to. So doing something different, I guess Rick is saying, that's not for everybody. It's not. But I can remember going to seminary, and I was in Atlanta, and I was working, and I just came to a place of, I just don't want to do this anymore. It was, gosh, 90 or whatever. But I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I packed up everything in a little 2-door Tercel Toyota and drove to New Orleans. Never been to New Orleans in my life. But I said, for me to go to the next step, I'm going to have to make a conscious step forward. And it changed my life 180. You know, I went from working for a trucking company to being a professional therapist. And I've never looked back since then.
And, you know, we were just talking again before the show. We both watched that movie, The Big Chill, last night. And, you know, what did the screenwriters want out of this? What did they want to get out of this? And this is also saying that I think the idea that there's a time we have to come to reality that, you know, all our dreams, all our visions, all our ways that we're going to make the world a better place, we're going to make a better place. Sometimes we have to come to the reality it's just not going to happen. That Nashville singer, yeah, you can still do all the right things, but then how many thousands of other singers have gone out there, and how, you know, what's the ratio and that makes it, and NFL players, what's the ratio of college football players that go into the NFL? And so is it bad to also come to that realization that maybe that's part of the assessment too, is, you know, that's been my dream, but, you know, maybe this is not for me. You know, I know in America we want to believe that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, well, I love that concept. That was a concept spread out there, Rick. But just like you and I have talk about here, a lot of people, it didn't work. You know, just because you go out for the team is not a guarantee you're going to make the team. There's a big gap between going out for a team and making the team. There's a big gap between getting in a U-Haul and then getting selected to be a singer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a you know, a Grand Canyon move, and few make it. You know, many try, few make it, and it takes a lot of guts. But the other side I want to say is the person who never tries succeeds doing nothing 100%.
Yeah.
There's the thing, and I think that was kind of the big chill idea was woulda, shoulda, coulda. You know, they were going back and they were looking, and this is one of the concerns I have about people romanticizing the past, or what I call airbrushing the past, all the imperfections of the past, all the people you didn't get along with, all the situations that weren't good. Oh, you just airbrush it. Oh, it was wonderful. Everybody got along. Everybody just thought it was wonderful. You know, that didn't exist.
Yeah, you know, there's a good scene in there between William Hurt and Klein, where near the end of the movie, Klein, you know, was saying to William Hurt, you know me, I love you, and so forth. And Hurt just looks up and says, "You don't know who I am." Yeah, we had a few interactions years ago.
Right.
But you know, and I do think sometimes we do. You're right. We airbrush or romanticize the past as to the people we were with and the relationships we had and the life it was.
Right. And I'll tell you, Rick, in that, you know, it's impossible to have a valid relationship with somebody from the past because the past doesn't exist anymore. If you can't bring you and you can't bring them and you can't bring the relationship into the day, there's no reality to it. There's no realness to that. And I think a lot of people are living off a fantasy life, a fantasy world. You know, just like I can be around people who were cheerleaders, you know, in high school, and now they're 60 years old. They're still cheerleaders. They still talk like cheerleaders. They still act like cheerleaders. They still present themselves like cheerleaders. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. We're not cheering anymore. This isn't it anymore. And so there is, I think, a real challenge for people to be mentally healthy. I think to be mentally healthy, you've really got to consciously choose to be in the now. I think you can appreciate the past. You can learn from the past. But at some level, Rick, I think it's powerful psychologically to let go of the past and keep it in the past.
I agree, but I also know, and I'm going back to this show. I don't know if you remember that show, Married with Children.
Oh yeah.
You know, and Al Bundy, who became a shoe salesman. You know, he had to live in the past, I think, just for his own sanity, because he's the one who caught 4 touchdowns in one game for Polk High. And I know several people out there that, you know, they were quote unquote somebody in the past, and life hasn't turned out for them, I think, like they wanted. And it's interesting. I do see them a lot of times going back to when I think this or when I did this. Yeah.
Rick, I think that's crippling.
Yeah.
I think that's psychologically crippling. And I think what the result of that is it keeps people stuck. They can't move. They can't change. They can't adjust. And I think it makes it very hard on people who have to live with it. You know, just because you married someone in 1970 doesn't mean in 2017 that's the same person you married. If it is, I guarantee you that house is a nightmare. That marriage is a nightmare. But people who say, well, I met him in the 70s, we dated, we developed a relationship, and we loved each other for who we were then. And we've both changed. And not only have we both changed, but our relationship dynamics have changed. We brought kids in, we've moved to different locations, and today we love each other in the 2017. I've seen people like that, and I think older people have that concept better than people. I've people in their 80s, and he's still on. Looks like we're.
Yeah, no, that's just going on.
Jumped off.
I think we are, but I don't know. So keep talking. I think we are still on. I don't know how that popped up, but I can close it up, I think.
Technology at its best, buddy. We're doing that. Woo! Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, there we go.
There we go. There we go. We're back on the plan. And this is to show how important Rick's knowledge of technology is.
Yeah.
And as you see things coming back in the screen, you see Rick messing with him. Roger, part of the issue, not
It's just right.
boy. You know that there's some people who know how to push a for progress, push a button for people's success, and but it's easier to push people's button for chaos and confusion. That is an easy button that you learn early in life how to push. Is how to tear down, not how to build up. And I think that's sad, but I think you're seeing people who are separating that and saying, I could tear down, I could be critical. You know, it does take no effort at all, Rick, to be a critic. It doesn't take an effort to look at things from the negative, to look at what's not there versus what is there. But I admire people who have a different vision. I just think that is like amazing.
Well, and going back to this idea, how do you do an assessment of self? And yes, it is looking at self, but also do you have the courage to ask these people in your lives, how am I doing as a husband? How am I doing as an employee? How am I doing as an employer? How am I doing as a father? How am I doing as a church member? And say, I want honest feedback. And and how many people do you know in your life will have the courage to give you both the honest, the good and the bad of it?
Right. And I think more than that, and I think that is a difficult task, Rick. What I look at is asking those people, if you were going to write my story for 2018, what would that story be? That is going to give me a mountain of information. It's going to tend to see what their vision is. And what I do is, if they have a negative vision, my suggestion is tear it up.
Mm-hmm.
Tear it up, throw it in the trash. But if they say, well, I think this is possibly happening. I think this could go. Wow, that's the person you want with you. It's important to have, and I've said this on other shows, am I running with cheerleaders or am I running with critics? If you're running with critics, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And 2018 is going to be a dead race. You're not going to go anywhere. But if they're dreaming and they're out there casting a dream for you, and you buy into that, Rick, and you encourage that, and you share that with these people who have dreams, the chances of you reaching that dream are much, much higher. Because I think one of the things you notice is the people that are up there are not any different than regular people. They've just taken advantage of certain things. The rope came by and they grabbed it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only difference. They were just like you back in the day. I've always remember Garth Brooks was a bouncer in a bar in Stillwater, Oklahoma, at the university, at Oklahoma State University. That's what he was. But now he's a megastar. But he was a bouncer in Stillwater. And for people in Oklahoma, Stillwater's a small little town in the middle of nowhere. Metro Oklahoma City or Metro Tulsa. No, little bitty town. But he just used that as a springboard. He was a regular guy from Yukon, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City, and he got a chance. And I love how he said, when I went to Nashville, there were hundreds of people better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. See, he recognized the quality of people there were just tremendous, but the rope came back.
Yeah.
And he took it and he ran with it. And I think that's what's available for all of us. That are we in a position? That's one thing out of this show I would want people to assess. If a rope came by, number one, would I notice it? And number two, would I grab it? And I believe a rope is coming by till the day you die. Because I remember the story of Colonel Sanders and J.C. Penney's, who the rope didn't come by until after they were 65. They had terrible times, especially Colonel Sanders. Some very dark moments and moments of failure, but they never stopped looking for the rope.
Right. And if I remember Sanders' story, wasn't it? Again, it was taking a bad situation and making it success. Being that he had a restaurant, but it was just a local mom and pop restaurant. That they built the interstate close to the restaurant, so all the traffic went off the main road on the interstate. So he lost his business. So instead of shutting everything up and saying woe is me,
I'm gonna go sell shoes.
Yeah, he started selling his chicken recipe.
Yeah, and I think that's a piece too in that, Rick, is adjustability. People who are rigid, this is always the way we've done it. We've never done it any other way. I'm not about to do that. Well, those kind of people do not succeed very often. For people who say, the bull's in the ditch, and what do I need to do? If I've got to get in there, and I've got to get muddy, and I got to get stinky, and I've got to grab its tail to get it out, I'm going to do that. If that's what it takes. Mm-hmm. Those are two totally different groups of people. And the comfortable group, we want our audience to know that the comfortable group is the person who doesn't get dirty, who stands outside and tells everybody how to do stuff, but aren't willing to do it. There's a lot to be said about jumping in the middle of things and grabbing a tail and not just doing willy-nilly, but having a plan. And again, having a cheerleading squad, having people, I can believe in you. That was one of the things I look at, Rick, in national television. It wasn't that I was anything special, but when they asked me, I went. I saw this rope. Oh, I jumped on it. I brought my hiney down to the airport. I got a ticket. I drove in. I'd never been to New York City ever in my life. But boy, I went that day, and I did what I was told. I didn't improvise. Yeah. I didn't act like, well, I know Oklahoma. I know New York City. I was like, a hillbilly in the big city. I was like, oh, wee. But I did what I was told. I did the best I knew how, and I came home. And that was the beginning of, goodness gracious, 10 years of being on national TV, which was wonderful. I loved it, And when I needed my wife to take me to the airport, she did. When I needed my children to pick me up at the airport, they did. They were cheerleaders. They were encouragers, and they made it possible. And I think anybody who thinks I can make it on my own and I don't need anybody, I just don't think that's possible. No. I think it takes a tribe. It takes a crowd to help you. And they have to be cheerleaders, not critics.
I just posted out there, start writing your story for 2018, because again, that's also has to be the discipline is what we need to do for ourselves. What is going to be our story for 18? We need to write it down and intentionalize it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something that amazed me in my brain. They were talking about, I was reading a thing on the internet about a woman who in her life was stuck, who felt, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm not really doing anything. And her friends around her were like cheerleaders. We believe in you. And so this really just changed her mind, Rick. They set up a GoFund page. Mm-hmm. and begin to, instead of giving her presents during the holidays, they gave to the GoFund page. And so that built up, and what she realized was, well, at the amount they gave, number one, she didn't need any of those presents.
Yeah.
And at the amount they gave, it opened the door for her to do and go and be the next step. And she progressed from that. And so if she would have done the same thing and accepted the same thing, and they would have thought the same thing, she would be in the same place. But because they were willing to cast a vision out, encourage her. And I thought that was a great psychological message. We believe in you enough to contribute to you, rather than, because it's just easier, go out and buy a gift, give them a gift. You know, everybody, look at that guy, he did good. And you know, in 30 days, gifts in the trash, gifts in the closet, gifts in the basement. Very few people still using the gift. That's like New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. How many people get a gym membership, but by February, they're not going to nothing's bigger than how full gym is in January. And how much money, I think you said to me that's where the gym makes its money in the month of January for the entire year. Because the rest of the year, very few people are in there. And so they're not using it. But they put that money down, but they've not put the energy behind it. And I love how you're saying, here's the time. Here's the moment to do that. Here's having a specific plan, having a specific way, and not keeping that to yourself. I mean, once you sit in a room by yourself and write it down, share it with people. Let them know. Because when you do, it creates an element of accountability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's always been a good rule of thumb. Anytime you set down goals and something, if you don't share it, once again, then who knows? That was a goal of yours. And the other part of writing your story for 2018 is you can understand that your stories are always going to be fluid. So it's always interesting to see how you do some rewrites in it where it may be, I'm going to get more qualified, or I'm going to credential in this certain area, but then an opportunity comes up in another area. I'd go with it.
And I think there's a lot to be said if you write down the original plan in black ink, and then you do the year in red ink, and it will show you were there any changes, what was your attitude about the change, what action did you take about the change, and where did the change lead you. And nothing's cooler than to look back on a year and see all the great surprises that were given to you during that year. You know, I hear people say all the time, wow, I never expected that. I never saw that coming. Oh, man, now that's what makes life worth living. That's an exciting moment out there. But because we're so willy-nilly and let things happen, that, you know, we just go with the flow. And then what happens, Rick, is we end up in a place we didn't want to go ever. But we were with the flow, you know, and that's like going down a river in a raft and not taking a paddle. You'll be surprised where you'll end up. And usually you're going to be in a cubby stuck going nowhere. But if you have a paddle, you can avoid those pit moments. You can get into the stream and get down the river and have a good time and enjoy yourself and see all the sights and do it in a fast manner. But you have to be involved.
Yeah.
You have to take the paddle. You have to steer the course. You got to break a sweat. And some people are just not willing to do that. But they want life to go well. And it's like, wow, I just don't know how you can do nothing and life go well. I don't find that. happening with people. People who are lackadaisical tend to attract the most negative moments, but people who are involved steer around. The negative moments are there, but they quickly notice them and steer away from them. And so there's not less negative moments. They handle negative moments better than the other group.
And the other challenge, and one of the things that I see, unfortunately, more than I want to, and we have to get out there and understand, is, first of all, there's a great book out there. Scott Peck wrote The Road Less Traveled.
Oh, yeah.
And, he starts out, and this is really before he started his spiritual journey. He was a young writer at the time, and but he starts the book out, Life is Difficult.
Wait a minute. I've got to interject here. I saw Peck live in New Orleans.
Oh, really?
Speak. Yeah.
At what stage of his?
And just as he had published The Road Less Traveled. Very, very small man, very quiet man, very unassuming man. He let the message speak for it. He was not this dynamic.
You're right about that.
Yeah, he was not at all. Not at all. I was thrown back. It was in a little Episcopal church in New Orleans, and I'd heard he was going to be there, so I made a point to get over and to watch him. And I was stunned. I was like, these guys, excuse me, these Scott Peck, yeah, just a regular, nice guy.
Well, and once again, he was very honest in his life, the trials and challenges he had. He made admissions, he wasn't the best dad, he wasn't the best husband. He had a lot of challenges, and when he started his journey, he came, and it was part of this, I think, where he started looking at himself and the intentionalization of, as he started writing his stories, and with the idea, started off that book, Life is Difficult, Life is Hard. The other thing that drives me crazy is when people argue, well, it's not fair. Yeah, life is not fair. Put that as the other reality, and as soon as you start accepting that, then you can go
life
forward.
Is more fair, which is paradoxical. It's like, wow, but everybody who then complains about life not being fair and whining about life,
and then
life's not fair. It seems to get worse for them, and I think that's hard to see when you're young and easier to see as you grow older.
Going back to what who was it who said, it's amazing, the harder I work, the more successful I am.
Yeah. I think it's like Henry Ford, something like Carnegie. The harder I work, the luckier I get. Yeah, I love that. And it's, the one word I'm hearing more in good mental health, Rick, is intention. Living life intentionally. I did not hear that much when I was young. I did not hear that phrase, and just like you're saying with Peck, he said life's difficult. I remember, now that's pretty simple, but I'd never heard that until I heard him say that, and I went like, yeah, wow, it is. They're not selling. And that was kind of the message of The Good Chill. One of the husbands of one of the people in The Big Chill said, nobody told me life was going to be fun growing up.
Yeah.
They said it was going to be hard. So it's hard. But you guys kind of assume it was fun and it ought to always be fun. And he said that just doesn't, come on to me like being grown up. And, you got to, a lot of people just want to have a pre-dug ditch, as I always say. And that isn't life. Life is about getting a shovel, getting and digging in the ground and pulling it up and breaking a sweat. That's life. That's what it's about right there. And there's where, I love, and I've seen this in certain artists being interviewed. They say, yes, I was an overnight success. It took me 10 years to be an overnight success. Wow. I said, I performed, the 5 people in the little backyard place, for $5 for a meal, and now today I've been discovered, and I make $1 million, but nobody's talking about the performance for a sandwich I did. And I think nobody talks about, and that's probably a part of it too, Rick, the cost. That there's going to be a cost. I don't know about you, but when I went to school and drove through the school, nobody threw a diploma in my car and said, "Thanks for driving through. Here's your diploma. Go on." No, that was 3 years of my life, waking up every day, going to school, sitting in class, taking exams, writing down notes, day in, day out. There was a cost involved. And I guess that's one thing that we want to share with the audience. Get married, there's a cost. Get a job, there's a cost. Get an education, there's a cost. Count the cost before you make the purchase, and you're going to be a more satisfied person. But assuming all I got to do, and I've said this over and over, there is a huge gulf between getting married and being married. And people think they're the same thing. Oh, no. Anybody who can stand up and say, "I do," can get married. But the day in, day out, cleaning, cooking, sharing, doing the honey-do list is marriage, is being married. And not everybody's built up for that. Not everybody's willing to get dirty doing that kind of stuff. And so they don't have what it takes to stay married.
Yeah. There's the cost investment into it. And like I said, are you willing to make that investment to get the returns out of it? I was just thinking, you were sharing with me, going back to Big Chill real quick, about the opening scene and you thought with the actor in the coffin who didn't make the cut, so forth. I remember also, I forgot the name of the shoe company that was put in there, but I do remember, again, some of the irony of it is the shoe company was actually a quote from Mao Zedong against capitalism, and yet the owner of that house was successful in a capitalistic society and named his shoe company after a Mao Zedong quote, "Running dog capitalism" or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And so sometimes we'll find life can be a little ironic in what and that's what you're saying about growth. Hopefully none of us are the same we were.
And I've said this, and we kind of talked about this before the show started. Did you ever think you would be here?
No.
Did you ever think this would be your life? When you were in high school. If I said, "Rick, write down where you're going to be in 2017, would this be the place? Would this be the story?" And for the most part, I'd say nobody would get that one. Nobody would get that. It's no. Yeah. Again, I knew there was a South Carolina when I grew up, but I never thought I'd be there. And now I've been here 20 years. What? How'd that happen? How did that happen? It's because I was flexible enough when the opportunity came and the rope came by, I grabbed it. And I came here. And was it easy? No. Was it comfortable? At times, the porch without it. And there's the payoff to it. People only see the final moment. They don't see all the prep to get into the final moment. Again, I go back to being on TV and a person asking me, "How did I get on TV?" And basically what I told them is, I have to do what they asked me to do to get here. I don't get to show up and tell them what to do. I'm on their payroll. They're not on mine. And so because I'm willing to do that and you're not, I'm here and you're not. That's how it works. And people don't like that. And people say that's not fair. But there's a choice involved. There's a cost involved. And you're presented with that. And how flexible are you? How much are you willing to do what it takes to get where you want to go? You know, because sitting down on 2018, writing down where you want to go, and evaluating the cost and getting a cheerleading crowd around you is not easy. It's hard. It will mess with you. But the people who do it, I guarantee you, are going to get to the end of 2018 far closer to what they projected than the people who are in the flow.
Yeah.
I very seldom, what I hear from people in the flow is, how did I get here? How'd that happen? Oh, I made this choice and this choice and this choice and this choice and this choice. You know, it wasn't a Star Trek moment where it was beam something down and there's the way. No, that wasn't the way it was. But that's the way they talk. Is like this, beam down, this was the only choice I had. What? You got to be kidding me. No, that isn't how it goes at all. So it's a tough moment. What we're asking people today is to make an investment in you, to make a conscious investment in you, and get people to knowledgeable of that and supportive of that. And we believe their 2018 is going to be a much more successful, productive, happier life for them. But you got to do it now. The wrong time to do it is in December 2018. The right time to do it is, 2018, January. That's the right time to do it. There's a right time and a right place and a right way.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen T.D. Jakes' new book called Soar.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through it.
Oh, you have it?
I love it.
I gotta get it. I just saw him interview yesterday, and what they talk about is, again, he's talking about the world of entrepreneurship, that this is, really the world we're in nowadays. But I like, again, how he puts things in order, and he talks about, the Wright brothers, and yeah, they could have stopped at Newton's law of gravity, that whatever goes up must come down.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and so they got to a higher law, which was the law of aerodynamics, about push and resistance.
Right.
And so they were able to get an airplane in the sky, and now we have what we have today because we didn't just stop at the law. And I think a lot of times in life we do that. We think there's a law that we've hit against, and we forget to look for the higher law that's out there for us. And when we start looking for the higher law, then we can supersede and go beyond the lower law. And so, yeah, we do have the law of gravity, which works. It works well. But the law of aerodynamics supersedes that and shows that you don't have to be stuck.
Right, and I think that's a great point, Rick. I think the belief that we're going to build an airplane, we're going to put it out there, and the first flight, it's going to work, is an illusion.
Or that we can't build an airplane because the law of gravity says
it's going to crash.
Yeah.
And give, but they're both a giving up mindset. Of throwing your hands up, and nothing works like that. It's people who crash it, read. I guarantee you they didn't come up with that second concept when the most popular concept was the first one. What comes up comes down. And no, they found the second one by studying, by searching, by evaluating, and kind of emotionally stubbing their toes a couple of times.
Yeah. And
then that's how they got the plane up. And now look at the flight. That flies. Woo!
And again,
crazy.
If I heard him right, we know the Wright brothers. Of course, there was no school of aerodynamics to go to for them to learn it.
Yeah.
They were bicycle builders.
Right, and it was scraps.
Yeah.
It was scraps. And I love how in T.D. Jakes' thing on TV. He shows the shop. It's this little bitty, dusty, dirty bicycle shop. And he said, out of this came aerodynamics. Came the space program. Whoa! I mean, I think that parallels people's personal life. In so many of situations that you think nothing. I'm thinking of the Bible where it said nothing good comes out of Bethlehem. Well, that was the mindset. But God didn't buy into that. Jesus didn't buy into that. They said, maybe that's the way it is then, but we're going to change the concept, and we're going to step up and do it differently. And then look what happened. That's how it is. But we've got to, go a step farther. That's kind of what you're saying there. The first law is what comes up comes down. And you can accept that, and that allows you to comfortably sit in your chair and gives you a reason to give up. That's the thing, Rick. Have you ever not seen everybody having a good reason for a bad decision?
Yeah.
I've never seen somebody, well, I don't have a really good reason why I don't make a bad decision. No. They believe this is the right decision. They're more than willing to put their hand on the Bible and say, I swear this is going to work. You're like, woo! Have you really studied that? Have you really looked? Well, I don't want to put that kind of effort into it. Well, that is a formula for disaster in whatever avenue you're going into.
And, I think our other biggest challenge then, too, is, of course, the Wright brothers did not have this world here of being glued to a screen all the time. So they observed birds, and they knew that flight was possible, but they had to observe it and be intentional of the idea that they needed to figure it out. And I think we need to get back to this stage of being intentional about our world and seeing what is possible out there. Yeah, it is possible to be happy. It is possible to be spiritual. It is possible to be in good relationships. It is possible, but we got to be observing it and like you said, go to those that are showing it is possible.
Yes, and we want to own. It's harder today than in the old days. And today, success comes with intention. The more intentional people are, the more successful they are. And back in the day, you didn't have to be that intentional. You could just kind of bump into something, and sometimes the odds were in your favor and it worked out. But that seldom happens today. You've got to sit down. That's kind of what we're talking about in this show. Having intention, sitting down, evaluating 2018, setting a goal, writing it down, sharing it with people. There's steps on the ladder to get you to the top of your life. But anybody can sit on the ground and be critical. Anybody can sit down and say it can't be done. Wow, the world's full of that. Full of people singing the song, ain't it awful? Ain't this awful? Can't do. Life's not fair. I didn't get the fair shake. I didn't get no. It didn't happen because no intent. There was no intention in what you were doing. And we want to encourage people today listening to the porch to intentionally step up and be purposeful in what they're doing.
And exactly, and in the observation, you go back to the scriptures and talk about, we're first taught that we don't learn about God through the Bible or books or prophets or whatever, that our first exposure to God is just through nature itself. And yet, how many of us can count not only hours, how many minutes do we spend just, again, being intentional and observing the creation we have, and then we have everything else to build upon that. But when I noticed that in class a lot, when I teach it is a concept that's strange to call the millennial generation that you can learn about God just by watching nature. And it doesn't have to be a class that's part of our community.
Right. But the bottom line is, again, I'm not going to learn about God sitting in a closet.
Right.
That's kind of where people are. I want to sit in a closet and be struck by the concept of God. Wow. When all we're asking you to do is get out, get in the middle, have an intentional, open moment for God to communicate with you. If you do that, we're saying that works. That's people get that,
Yep.
And there's no such thing. I see this over and over in the writings of some of the great theologians. They're not professing their perfection. That the more I read about C.S. Lewis, the more I read, I'm not perfect. I got a lot of issues. I'm struggling. I don't have, but this is what I understand. And what he then moved to was relationship. The power of, I've embraced and I'm building a relationship. And it's worth it. And here's what difference it's made for me. Wow, there it is. It's not, let me tell you, I'm perfect. I do everything perfect. I got the answers to the test. I make 100 every time I take the test. The sun shines on me. No, that's not. People who profess that scare me. I don't want to be like, oh, buddy, I don't know about that perfection plan. But that real people having real moments and being real with each other, being transparent is a powerful chemistry between people that allows for great things to happen, is being able to step up and make that connection.
Yeah, reading Exodus again last night. It's funny, every time you read in the scriptures how you can read it 1,000 times and then something pops out at you. I did not realize that Aaron was the older brother of Moses.
Yeah.
And see, to me, I've read that. I don't know why that's always. I do know why, because again, in my mind, I just thought, well, since Moses was the one chosen that he was the older brother. So I already, and that's again when I teach my class, so I already had a bias in how I was reading that story, because I thought since God chosen him, and being the oldest son myself, I said, well,
it's good.
Why would God choose my younger brother? He got me.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I love the story in Exodus where we like to believe, if God talked to me, I'd do exactly what he said. I'd be on that like white on rice. And I love Moses where he says, God says, I want you to do this. And man, what does Moses jump to? He starts making excuses. And he doesn't move into it. He starts backing away. The great Moses is backing out of the deal. The great Moses is backing away from God. Wow. I mean, that's kind of like shakes me. Is that everybody isn't just like, go God, that's right, man, I'm doing this. That's the way we want to believe. That's the bias we have.
And then to see God get irritated with you and saying, all right, Moses, I'll call your brother Aaron to help you out.
Yeah, obviously, if you have a problem with this, I'm not going to act like you don't, but I'm not going to let you allow you to use that as an excuse. I'm bigger and better than that.
I'll give you the words to say.
Yeah. I think that's just like, and Aaron stepped up. You didn't hear him whining, I'm the older brother. Why are you dealing with this idiot who can't speak well? You didn't hear that kind of stuff from Aaron. God said, I need your help. Aaron was there to help. And he got the people out of Israel who'd been there for, hundreds of years. Incredible story. And like you said, every time you read it, it's always something new. Like, wow, I didn't think of that one. That didn't grab me. And you're enlightened even more. And that's what's good. And that's what we hope on some level. We don't want to compare ourselves to the Bible, but we want people to think. We want to encourage people to, look at things from a different angle instead of doing the same thing, expecting different results, which is the great definition of crazy. There are a lot of people, sadly, living their whole life with the structure of crazy.
Yeah, I would even say, we would love to see if anybody has an interest to, through our Facebook page, you can send messages and so forth, and not, whole writings, but the idea that, we'd love to hear you share just bits and pieces if you do start writing your story in 2018 and keep us posted. And, if you don't want it shared, just let us know. We won't do that. But if it is something you think would be worth sharing with others out there, we'd be happy to do that. But we would be interested in just seeing how.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. And we're certainly asking for people to invest, and that you and I both love when people invest, and we'll be thankful, and we'll use it the way you want us to use it
and
to help others.
Yeah. So next week, we might not even have anything. I'm having that surgery done Thursday, and so Tuesday next week, but I'm planning on being back here January 2nd, same time, same place. So we'll post it out there. But we'll just wish everybody a Merry Christmas right now and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
And keep us, we'd love to hear as you start writing your story for 2018, share anything you'd like. And, last week we mentioned about a book, a giveaway again, and so forth. And Jody, I can't remember, but anyway, we had somebody kind of give us a couple of comments. So I'll ask Jody how to get the book.
Thank you, Jody, and the book's coming your way.
Yeah, get that out to her. And
Merry Christmas.
So we'll see everybody live on January 2nd, and next week, just enjoy the holidays and be safe.
Take care.
And while you guys watch us sign off, let me see if I can do it from here first. If not, I'll go back over there. Let me see yourself. Oh, there it is.